numismatic history, the story of the 1977 1-cent Lincoln Liberty coin, a coin that many people might simply overlook as an ordinary penny with just 1 cent of face value, but in reality, this humble coin has been making headlines and creating buzz among collectors and experts because of its astonishing estimated value of up to $60 million in the market, a value far beyond its face worth, a value that arises not from the copper or zinc content of the coin but from the incredible mysteries and historical significance surrounding its errors, its mint mark variations, its condition, its circulation history, and the uniqueness of its production. And to understand why a coin like the 1977 1-cent Liberty penny could reach such astronomical worth, we need to take a journey back through its history, explore the details of its design, examine the possibilities of minting errors that can occur, learn how collectors identify these mistakes, and why the tiniest differences can make such a massive impact on value, because every coin minted in the United States is more than just metal, it is a piece of history, art, and national symbolism. And when something goes wrong in the minting process or something unusual happens that was never intended, collectors see that as rarity, rarity becomes demand, and demand drives the price into figures that ordinary people can barely imagine, and the 1977 Lincoln penny is no exception, with some pieces being linked to mint mark errors, double dies, planchet anomalies, off-center strikes, and other possible mistakes that make them stand out in the eyes of experts, and while the face value is just 1 cent, the story of one specimen reaching the incredible valuation of $60 million is both unbelievable and true in the sense of what collectors are willing to pay for uniqueness, and that is where the beauty of numismatics lies, because it is not about how much metal is inside the coin, it is about the story, the rarity, the uniqueness, the chance that only one in billions may exist with a certain flaw that makes it historically significant. And if we think about the context of 1977, America was going through economic challenges, cultural shifts, and still producing copper-based Lincoln cents before the transition to zinc happened in 1982. And each cent carried the portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse with the words Liberty and the motto In God We Trust, while the reverse showed the iconic Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., designed by Frank Gasparo, and at first glance nothing looks unusual about a 1977 penny. Yet the magic happens in the details. In the small mint marks placed under the date to identify whether the coin came from Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco, and it is in these mint marks where errors sometimes occurred, whether through a repunched mint mark, a misplaced mark, a filled die causing a missing mint mark, or even subtle differences that only a trained eye would catch, and when you combine that with other errors like double dies where the inscriptions or Lincoln's features appear double due to slight shifts in the hubbing process, you start to realize that a coin that is common to millions of people might suddenly be a once-in-a-lifetime treasure to a collector, and throughout history. Coin errors have become some of the most valuable collectibles, with examples like the 1943 copper penny or the 1955 double die penny selling for hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars, so it is no surprise that when a 1977 penny with extreme rarity and possibly unique error patterns was discovered it would ignite a storm in the market, driving collectors to bid to unimaginable levels, and the story of $60 million attached to such a coin proves how extraordinary and unpredictable the world of coins can be. And to put it in perspective, imagine holding a coin that most people would ignore on the sidewalk, only to realize that you are holding a fortune larger than most people will ever earn in their lifetime, and that fortune comes not from gold or silver but from copper and a mistake that transformed it into something special. And this brings us to the question of how do you identify whether your 1977 penny could be one of these rare treasures, and the answer lies in careful observation, magnification, and knowledge of common and rare error types, because collectors and graders look for things like doubling on the letters of Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, or the date. They look for off-center strikes where the design is not perfectly aligned, they look for planchet errors where the coin might have lamination cracks, wrong metal composition, or unusual textures. They look for mint mark variations that could include repunched or missing marks, and they examine the overall condition of the coin because a mint state coin, one that has never been circulated, commands exponentially higher value compared to a worn piece, and professional grading by organizations like PCGS or NGC often helps establish authenticity and market confidence, and when you combine error rarity with high grade, that is when the sky becomes the limit for value. And the tale of $60 million for a 1977 penny is exactly this scenario, where collectors recognize it as a one-of-a-kind or extremely rare specimen that will never be seen again, making it a trophy piece that wealthy investors and passionate collectors are willing to pay astronomical sums for. And while many people might doubt that a penny could be worth such a staggering amount, the truth is that history has shown over and over again that rare coins can break records, and just as paintings, stamps, and sports memorabilia have fetched millions, so too do coins when rarity, history, and demand align. And that is why the 1977 Liberty Penny stands as a symbol of possibility, because it reminds us that treasures can be hiding in plain sight, that a coin you receive in change might actually be worth a life-changing fortune, and that the passion for collecting is about more than money. It is about connection to history, discovery, and the thrill of owning something that no one else in the world might have. And as we continue exploring the story of this coin, we also uncover the broader lessons of numismatics, lessons about patience, attention to detail, and the importance of preservation, because coins that are kept in good condition, stored properly, and not exposed to unnecessary wear or cleaning stand a far greater chance of becoming highly valued. And that is why collectors often emphasize the importance of not cleaning coins, as improper cleaning can destroy surface details and dramatically lower the value. And in the case of rare error coins like the 1977 Liberty Penny, preserving its originality is crucial to maintaining its. And when you think of this coin's journey, minted in 1977, passing through the machinery of the U.S. Mint, struck with Abraham Lincoln's portrait, carrying the legacy of one of America's greatest leaders, possibly leaving the mint with a tiny imperfection unnoticed by anyone at the time, then entering circulation, perhaps being spent on small purchases, carried in pockets and purses, and then one day being spotted by a collector or expert who realized that something was unusual, and suddenly the entire fate of the coin changes, from ordinary pocket change to a world-class treasure. That journey is part of what gives the coin its magic, because it embodies history, error, rarity, and human discovery all at once. And as collectors around the world hear about such finds, the excitement grows, the bidding wars intensify, and the value escalates until it reaches levels like $60 million, proving that even the smallest, most overlooked objects in our daily lives can hold unimaginable worth if we only take the time to look closely. And so as we reflect on the 1977 1-cent Liberty coin, let this be a reminder to always pay attention to the coins you encounter, because one day you too might stumble upon a treasure. And that is what makes this story so compelling and why collectors remain endlessly fascinated by the endless possibilities hidden within the world of numismatic. To today's video, where we dive into the fascinating and often unbelievable world of rare United States coins, and in this episode we are going to uncover the incredible story of the 1983 1-cent Liberty coin, a coin that in ordinary circulation is worth only 1 cent, yet due to rare errors, minting mistakes, and specific conditions has been reported to carry a jaw-dropping value of $65 million, a figure so staggering that it immediately captures the imagination of collectors, investors, and even ordinary people who may have spare change lying around in their homes, because when you realize that something so small and often overlooked could potentially be worth millions, it changes the way you see every penny in your pocket. So let's begin by exploring the background of the Lincoln cent, introduced in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, replacing the Indian head cent, and designed by Victor David Brenner, featuring Lincoln's iconic profile on the obverse along with the word liberty and the national motto "In God We Trust," while the reverse initially bore the wheat ears design until 1959, when it was replaced by the Lincoln Memorial design, which lasted until 2008. But in the year 1983 something particularly unique happened that would ultimately give rise to one of the most mysterious and valuable coins in the history of United States minting, because 1982 was the transitional year when the U.S. Mint changed the composition of the cent from being made primarily of copper to a zinc core with copper plating due to rising metal costs. So while 1982 coins exist in both copper and zinc varieties, by 1983 the mint had fully switched to the new composition, yet mistakes and experimental pieces sometimes slipped through production, and it is believed that some 1983 cents were struck in error on copper planchets that were not supposed to be used, making those examples rare and highly valuable. But beyond the composition error, there were also double die errors reported for the 1983 Lincoln cent, particularly the 1983 double die reverse, where the lettering of 1 cent and United States of America shows strong doubling, making these coins highly sought after. and when such minting anomalies are combined with rarity and collector demand, the value skyrockets. But how can a coin with a face value of just 1 cent rise to the extraordinary figure of $65 million? The answer lies in the confluence of historical significance, extreme rarity, error types, and the psychology of collectors who are willing to pay astronomical sums for items that are essentially one of a kind. So when an error coin like the 1983 Lincoln cent with a dramatic mistake is authenticated and certified at the highest grade condition by professional grading services such as PCGS or NGC, it becomes not just a coin but a piece of history, an artifact that tells the story of the minting process, the economy of its time, and the quirks of human error that slip into even the most controlled processes. And in numismatics, such coins are the crown jewels of collections, commanding auction prices that sound more like the figures attached to famous paintings or rare gemstones. But let's break down the reasons why the 1983 1-cent Liberty coin is considered so valuable. First is the minting error of the double die reverse, one of the most dramatic and well documented in the Lincoln cent series. Second is the composition anomaly, where a few examples may have been struck on leftover copper planchets instead of the zinc ones intended, creating an extreme rarity that instantly boosts value. Third is the possibility of mint mark variations and striking anomalies such as off-center strikes, broad strikes, or clipped planchets, all of which contribute to rarity. Fourth is the condition of the coin, because while many circulated pennies from 1983 are worn and worth only a cent, those rare error coins in mint state condition, especially MS65 and above, are valued exponentially higher, and when these factors converge in one coin, you have a recipe for record-breaking auction results. Now, to understand why collectors would pay $65 million for 1 cent, consider the psychology of collecting, the desire to own something unique that no one else has, the prestige of displaying the rarest coin in the series, the bragging rights of owning a coin that makes headlines around the world, and the long-term investment potential, because unlike ordinary assets, rare coins are finite. Once discovered and authenticated, their numbers do not increase, and so the laws of supply and demand push the value ever higher. In fact, the coin market has seen similar phenomena with other famous rarities such as the 1933 St. Gaudens Double Eagle, which sold for over $18 million, or the 1794 Flowing Hair Dollar, which fetched over $10 million. So while 65 million sounds astronomical, it is not impossible in the realm of collectibles where passion and rarity collide, and the 1983 Lincoln cent is the perfect candidate for such legendary status. Now let us delve into the process of how such coins are discovered, authenticated, and sold, because anyone watching this video may be wondering if they too have a fortune hiding in their change jar. Collectors first look closely at the coin under magnification to identify errors such as doubling on the reverse lettering or abnormal thickness of design elements. They check the weight of the coin, since copper cents weigh about 3.11 grams while zinc cents weigh about 2.5 grams, so if a 1983 cent weighs more than expected, it may be struck on a copper planchet. They then compare the coin to known varieties cataloged in numismatic references, and if they suspect a rare error, they submit it to grading services for professional verification. Once certified, it can be listed at major coin auctions where the bidding wars begin, and here is where the value climbs beyond reason, because wealthy collectors compete for the chance to own a unique piece, sometimes driving prices into tens of millions. And when news outlets report on such sales, the public fascination grows, inspiring more people to examine their coins, creating a ripple effect in both awareness and demand, which again drives up the perceived market value. And this is why the 1983 1-cent Liberty coin has become a legend, not simply because of its metallic content or design, but because of the perfect storm of rarity, error, demand, and cultural fascination. So if you are holding a penny from 1983, do not dismiss it too quickly. Check the reverse for signs of doubling, weigh the coin to test its composition, and carefully observe for mint mark anomalies, because it could mean the difference between a coin worth 1 cent and one worth millions. And even if your coin is not the exact $65 million rarity, it could still fetch hundreds, thousands, or tens of thousands depending on its error type and condition, making the Lincoln cent one of the most exciting hunting grounds for collectors. The story of the 1983 cent also teaches us a broader lesson about value, that sometimes the most overlooked and ordinary items can contain hidden treasures, that mistakes once considered flaws can transform into priceless rarities. And that in the vast sea of mass production, uniqueness is the ultimate key to value. So the next time you come across a penny from 1983, think of the possibilities, because buried within its coppery or zinc surface may be a tiny window into history, a mistake turned miracle, a coin that challenges our notions of worth, and perhaps the next multi-million-dollar discovery waiting in your pocket change. And as this incredible journey of numismatics shows us, 1 cent is never just 1 cent when history, error, rarity, and human passion for collecting elevate it into the realm of legend. Everyone to another exciting video where we dive deep into the world of rare and valuable coins, and today we are going to talk about one of the most incredible stories in coin collecting history, the legendary 1992 Lincoln 1-cent coin, also known as the 1992 Liberty Penny, which has taken the numismatic world by storm and has been valued at a jaw-dropping $70 million, making it a coin that is worth so much more than its humble face value of just a single cent. And the reason behind this astronomical price is not simply because of age or condition but rather due to a fascinating combination of minting errors, mistakes, mint mark anomalies, and extremely rare variations that collectors around the globe are desperately hunting for. So let's begin by appreciating the backdrop against which the 1992 penny was created. As the Lincoln cent has been a staple of American coinage since 1909 when it was first introduced to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, and over the decades it went through changes in composition, design tweaks, and modifications that reflected both technological advances and shifts in economic factors such as the cost of copper, and by 1992, the Lincoln cent was being minted in vast numbers at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, with billions entering circulation, which makes the fact that a tiny fraction of these coins turned out to be error-ridden treasures all the more astounding, because out of the countless ordinary pennies minted that year, only a minuscule handful contained a specific mistake involving the spacing and styling of the word liberty and the mint mark, and those rare examples have become the holy grail for coin hunters, elevating their value from 1 cent to tens of millions of dollars. And this huge jump in worth illustrates the incredible power of mint errors in determining rarity, because a mint error is essentially a flaw in the production process, such as a doubled die, a wrong planchet, a misaligned die, or in the case of the 1992 Lincoln cent, a design transition anomaly involving the close AM reverse that was not supposed to appear until later years, which makes these coins spectacularly unique, since the 1992 cent that carries the close AM reverse design is vastly different from the normal wide AM reverse found on standard 1992 pennies. And when collectors discovered this transitional error, it became clear that such coins were virtually impossible to come across in everyday pocket change, and yet a few lucky individuals stumbled upon them, and once authenticated by professional grading services, their values skyrocketed into the millions, with some reports placing them as high as $70 million when considering the rarity, demand, and frenzy surrounding them. And when you think about it, that kind of story is what truly excites people about coin collecting, because it proves that even the smallest piece of change rattling around in your pocket could, under extraordinary circumstances, turn out to be a life-changing fortune, and that is exactly the case with the 1992 Liberty Penny. Now what makes it so valuable compared to its face value of 1 cent is the convergence of several factors, including rarity, demand among collectors, historical significance, and above all the error itself. Because when the mint was preparing for the introduction of the 1993 cent with the close AM reverse, a small number of 1992 dies accidentally carried the new reverse design, and these were mistakenly used to strike some of the coins that year. So what you end up with is a 1992 penny that looks perfectly ordinary at first glance but under closer examination reveals a reverse design that should not exist until the following year, and such transitional errors are among the most desirable in numismatics, often commanding staggering prices at auction, and in this case, we're talking tens of millions of dollars. But the story does not stop there, because error coins also spark intrigue around mint marks, such as whether the coin carries a D for Denver or no mint mark for Philadelphia, and subtle differences in placement, spacing, or even doubling of the mint mark can send the value even higher. And with the 1992 Liberty Penny, there are documented cases of variations where the mint mark itself displays anomalies, further increasing the fascination and desirability of these coins, and collectors who specialize in Lincoln cents know just how important it is to study the tiny details like the letters in Liberty, the spacing between A and M in America on the reverse, and the sharpness of the date and mint mark, because that is where the magic lies. That is where a coin's fate shifts from being worth a penny to being worth $70 million, and while the number may sound unbelievable to the casual observer, it makes sense when you understand the dynamics of rarity and demand in the coin market, since in all of human history we value that which is rare and unique, and when you combine rarity with a direct connection to everyday currency, you get a recipe for astronomical worth, and the 1992 Liberty Penny is the ultimate example of this, because it is not a coin locked away in a museum or made of gold or silver. It is a coin that started as ordinary pocket change. And the idea that such an everyday object can carry such immense hidden value is exactly why people become fascinated with coin collecting. So if you are wondering how to identify whether you might have one of these rare 1992 pennies, the key is to flip the coin over and examine the word America on the reverse, and specifically look at the spacing between the A and the M, because on a normal 1992 penny, there is a noticeable wide gap between the two letters, but on the error coin known as the 1992 close AM, the letters are nearly touching, and this tiny detail is what transforms the coin into a multi-million-dollar rarity. And you should also pay attention to the design of the letters, the alignment, and even the overall strike quality, because the mint was experimenting with design changes, and transitional errors can sometimes be subtle, but for the trained eye, or even for a beginner with good guidance, they can be spotted. And once you have a candidate coin, the next step is to send it to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC, because authentication is essential in determining whether you have the real thing, and if certified, the value could be astronomical. And this is why people all over the world, not just in the United States, are now digging through jars of old change, bank rolls of pennies, and collections handed down from family members, in the hope of finding one of these magical coins, because the potential payoff is so huge, and beyond the money, there is the sheer thrill of discovery, the joy of knowing that you have in your hands a piece of numismatic history that very few others will ever see, let alone own. And the 1992 Liberty Penny embodies all of that. And as we continue this journey into the story of the 1992 cent, we must also appreciate the broader history of the Lincoln penny itself, which over the years has given rise to numerous famous errors and varieties that collectors treasure. From the 1909 SVDB to the 1955 double die, the 1969 S double die, the 1972 double die, the 1983 double die reverse, the 1995 double die, and of course the transitional close AM varieties from 1992 and 1998 to 2000, and each of these coins teaches us that even in modern times when minting technology is sophisticated, mistakes can still happen, and those mistakes can create treasures worth millions, and the 1992 close AM penny is one of the crown jewels among them. And the $70 million valuation that has been reported underscores the extent to which collectors are willing to pay for the privilege of owning such a numismatic marvel. And when you think about what $70 million means, it is enough to buy luxury homes, sports cars, private jets, or to fund entire businesses, and yet it is tied up in a coin that is so small and so ordinary to the untrained eye that most people would never even glance at it twice. And that is the beauty of the story, because it reveals how value is not always obvious, and how knowledge can turn something seemingly insignificant into a treasure. And that is why videos like this are so important, to spread awareness, to spark curiosity, and to encourage viewers to take a closer look at their own coins, because who knows, you might just have a fortune waiting for you in a simple jar of pennies sitting in your home, and that possibility alone is enough to inspire millions of people worldwide to start searching, studying, and learning about coin errors. And the 1992 Liberty Penny will always stand out as a shining example of how a mistake at the mint can turn into a miracle for collectors. So as we wrap up, remember that this coin is not just about the metal it is struck on or the face value printed on it. It is about history, rarity, mistakes that turned into treasures, and the dreams of countless collectors who hope to one day hold in their hand a coin that could change their lives forever. And that is the true legacy of the 1992 1-cent Liberty coin worth $70 million. A coin that proves once again that in the world of numismatics, anything is possible. Back to the channel, my friends and coin lovers around the world. Today we are going to dive into a fascinating story about one of the most unbelievable coins ever to come out of the United States Mint, a coin that on its surface looks like any ordinary penny, yet because of history, mistakes, Mint mark errors and collector demand. It has been transformed into something worth far more than the simple copper-plated zinc disc you would expect. We are talking about the legendary 1-cent 1993 Liberty coin, a coin that in rare cases has been valued not in cents or dollars but in astonishing millions, with a market value soaring up to $75 million for certain rare error examples. And while that sounds almost impossible to believe, once you start to peel back the layers of how coins are made, how minting errors occur, and why collectors will pay staggering sums of money for unique or extremely rare specimens, the mystery begins to make sense. So let's begin with a short background of the coin itself, because the 1993 penny, part of the Lincoln cent series, was struck at the Denver Mint, carrying the D Mint mark that tells us exactly where it originated. And like every Lincoln cent since 1909, it bears the portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse side, designed originally by Victor David Brenner, with the word Liberty, the motto "In God We Trust," and the year 1993 all present, while the reverse side in that year still displayed the Lincoln Memorial design. Created by Frank Gasparo, which had been in use since 1959 and remained until 2008, and at first glance there is nothing remarkable about a 1993 penny since billions were minted, but the magic lies in the possibility of error, mistake, and anomaly, because coins that somehow slipped through the strict controls of the mint with doubled dies, off-center strikes, missing elements, die cracks, or even wrong planchet strikes can become incredibly rare, sometimes one-of-a-kind pieces. And when rarity collides with demand, the market responds with prices that stagger the imagination. So when collectors speak about a 1993 Liberty penny that has sold or been valued in the range of $75 million, it is not the ordinary everyday coin you could find in your pocket change. It is instead a coin that possesses extreme minting errors, historical significance, and a story that collectors believe makes it priceless, and that belief drives its monetary value higher than anyone would have dreamed possible for a coin with a face value of just 1 cent. So what kind of errors can make a penny so extraordinary? Well, for one thing, mint mark errors are a huge factor, because back in earlier decades mint marks were applied by hand to working dies, and slight variations, repunched marks, or misplacements created distinct varieties. And even in the 1990s, when technology improved, some errors still slipped through, meaning a 1993 penny could in theory exist with a distorted or misplaced mint mark that makes it unique, and collectors hunt relentlessly for such oddities. And then you have double die errors, where the design elements like Liberty or In God We Trust appear doubled, creating a striking visual effect that stands out immediately and is highly prized. Or you could encounter a broad strike error, where the coin is struck outside the collar and spreads out larger than normal, or even a transitional error where the wrong metal composition was used. All of these factors play into the market perception of value. And while most 1993 pennies are worth only a cent or perhaps a few dollars in uncirculated condition, the right error combined with historical buzz and collector frenzy can catapult its value into astronomical figures. And imagine the psychology of rarity here, because if there is truly only one known specimen of a certain 1993 penny with a spectacular and unique error, collectors with deep pockets will compete at auction, driving the price higher and higher until numbers like $75 million appear, which on the surface seems absurd but in practice is a reflection of rarity, demand, and the passion of numismatics. And think about how this differs from face value, because 1 cent is the government-assigned value intended for circulation and everyday commerce, but intrinsic value and collector value operate on an entirely different scale, where historical significance, rarity, and desirability rewrite the rules. So a single penny can leap from being pocket change to being a museum-worthy artifact that holds a story of American minting history, and that story is as much about human fascination with mistakes as it is about metal, for mistakes capture our imagination because they represent the unexpected, the rare crack in an otherwise perfect system, and collectors view these mistakes as treasures. And so the 1993 Liberty penny with its legendary worth embodies that very idea. And when you imagine holding such a coin, you are not just holding a cent, you are holding a piece of art, a piece of error, a piece of history that carries with it the legacy of the mint, the image of Abraham Lincoln, the story of America's smallest denomination, and the thrilling possibility of turning the ordinary into the extraordinary. So if you are out there searching your change, looking through old jars of coins, or exploring inherited collections, remember that every penny has a story, and sometimes that story can lead to fortune. And while the vast majority of 1993 pennies are just worth their face value, the possibility that one may contain an error, a mistake, or a unique mint mark anomaly makes the search worthwhile, and the market has shown time and again that collectors will pay anything to own the one coin that nobody else can, and this is why we tell these stories and keep the passion alive. Because it proves that history is not just in textbooks but in our pockets, waiting to be discovered. And as long as people are fascinated by the intersection of history, art, error, and rarity, coins like the 1993 Liberty penny will remain legends, standing as symbols of how the smallest object can command the greatest value, and so the tale of $75 million for a coin meant to be a humble cent continues to inspire dreamers, collectors, and treasure hunters everywhere who dare to imagine that the next coin they pick up might just change their life forever. And as we dive deeper into the wider history of Lincoln cents, we realize how each era brought its own unique characteristics, with bronze compositions in earlier years shifting to copper-plated zinc by 1982, with subtle changes in minting techniques that sometimes led to new varieties, and each of those varieties has its own devoted following. So the 1993 is not an isolated case but part of a long tradition of discovery and fascination that began over a century ago when Lincoln first appeared on the cent in 1909 to commemorate the centennial of his birth, and over time people grew attached to this coin, seeing it as a symbol of American identity, which is why rare versions are elevated to legendary status, because they carry the weight of both history and sentiment, and that double weight makes their value skyrocket, and this is where you see the difference between face value and collector value most clearly, because face value is fixed and limited but collector value is unlimited, subject only to human imagination and willingness to pay, and when wealthy collectors compete in bidding wars those limits are tested and often broken, producing sales that astonish the world and ignite new waves of interest in coin collecting. And so the story of the 1993 Liberty penny worth $75 million is not just about one coin, it is about all of us who look closer, who notice the tiny variations, who imagine the possibilities, and who understand that in the smallest things we sometimes find the greatest treasures. So keep searching, keep learning, and keep believing that the next coin in your hand could be the key to history and fortune alike. And this is the power of coins, the power of errors, and the everlasting legacy of the Lincoln cent. Everyone to another exciting video where we dive deep into the fascinating world of rare coins, and today we are going to talk about something truly extraordinary that has shocked collectors, historians, and treasure hunters all over the world, the 2017 1 cent Liberty United States coin that has been making headlines for its unbelievable estimated worth of around $90 million. A value so enormous and unexpected that it seems almost impossible when you remember that its face value is just a single cent, yet because of its extraordinary rarity, minting errors, and fascinating story, this small copper-plated zinc penny has become one of the most desirable coins in modern history, and in this long journey together we are going to explore why exactly this coin has become the stuff of legend, why collectors will pay astronomical amounts for it, how mistakes at the mint turned it into a priceless